rodafleming in the Philippines. Now, I was actually going to run this next section into the previous video about Briffault's law, but because it's also about Briffault's law, but I fully accept that there's a lot of people out there who are not particularly interested in how Briffault might affect relationships between men and trans women. So I've made this second video which discusses that, and I think will show why trans women come to be such desired partners for certain kinds of men. It's not because they're gay, I hasten to add. We've discussed how Briffault's law makes the supply of sex, women are the gatekeepers to sex, so they control the supply of sex, and Briffault describes the conditions under which sex will be supplied to men in exchange for favour or tangible benefit. Well, how does that affect relationships between a man and a male to feminine trans woman, a transitioned trans girl? Well, the answer is they don't see sex in terms of Briffault at all. Briffault doesn't affect the relationship between a man and a ladyboy or any other expression of male to feminine transsexualism. It just doesn't. And the reason for that is both parties are actually male, right? The girl in this relationship cannot get pregnant. She knows she can't get pregnant. She's always known she can't get pregnant. So the imperative that brought Briffault into being, women's need to protect the potential offspring of a sexual liaison, just doesn't apply. It simply doesn't. It's not there. It has no function or bearing on the relationship between a man and a trans woman at all. So what is it that does, what makes trans women so agreeable to sex? And the answer to that is affirmation. Right? Affirmation of what? Affirmation as a woman. And how does a trans woman get that? And the answer is by being penetrated. Principally, that's sexual affirmation. There's other types, but for transsexuals, that is, remember we've decided on this convention, that is Blanchard HSTS, for transsexuals who are uniquely attracted to men, they're sexual inverts. The absolutely primary source of affirmation is sexual. It's also got to do with the kind of sexualized things that couples do together, you know, and the way that you smack her bottom and, you know, the kissing and the cuddling and all the rest of it. But these are all part of the sexual experience. But the most important thing is actually sex. And that is affirming for the girl. That tells her that not only is she a woman, but she's a desired woman, because her straight man is penetrating her. So every time you do that, you recreate your partner as a girl. You know, it's a big thing for her. You know, in relationships between men and women, the principal target is really the vagina, right? That's what is desired by men. But in relationships between men and trans women, what's desired is the male penis, the masculine penis, the man's penis. That's the object of desire. That's what they want. And you'll find that if you're in a relationship with a girl like this, I mean, she can't keep her hands off it. Not hers, yours. They're constantly playing with them. They're constantly touching them. They're constantly referring to them, looking at them. It's just, for a straight guy, it's really hard to understand. But you have to try and see it through their eyes. You know, they look at the front of a man's pants in exactly the same way as men look at the front of a woman's pants. You know, they want to see that sexual erogenous zone. But the critical one for the trans woman is what's hanging between the man's legs, and that changes the power balance completely. The relationship between a man and a trans woman becomes, it's not the same as a relationship between a man and a woman. And of course, one reason is they can't produce children. But the other is this dynamic, this affirmation dynamic. Women do not need to have sex in order to be affirmed that they are actually women. They know they are. You know, they were born with a vagina. They've been playing with it all their lives. They know what it is. Trans women don't have that. So they're constantly seeking affirmation in other ways. And sexual affirmation is a massive, massive hit. Obviously, all transsexuals, that is Blanchard HSTS, have male ones, have the male to feminine, that is, have the same need for this affirmation. You also get it in autogynephilic non-homosexual transitioners who become androphilic as a consequence of their autogynephilia, which makes them transition, and then they see themselves as women, and it's like, oh, now I have to affirm myself by having sex with men. And those are called pseudo-bisexuals. And sometimes, like in Asia, these are vastly more common than they are in the West because there's much less homophobia, right? And so that's what misleads people into thinking that the vast majority of trans women in Asia are actually homosexual. They're not. They're not. The balance is about the same. It's just that there are far more pseudo-bisexuals who have adopted this androphilic behaviours because of the affirmation it can give them. And so for a man in a relationship like this with a trans woman, there's a couple of things to observe. And the first is, don't ever get caught with another trans woman. Being caught with another woman would be bad. That would be bad. And a lot of girls would end the relationship, but most actually wouldn't. And they would be angry, and they would cry, and they would make a terrible fuss. They might move back to their mothers for a week or so, but they will come back, and they will forgive you. And why would they do that? You know, a woman might say, no, I'll never have anything to do with him. Because for a woman, when a man is unfaithful, that means he's a flight risk. She can't rely on him to be there, right? For a transsexual, it's slightly different. She's relying on her man for affirmation. She gets affirmation from his untainted mojo, his ability to transform her, to affirm her through sex. Now, one of the things that trans women are constantly seeking for and looking for in their men, and not in a good way, is indications that they might be homosexual. They don't want to be with homosexual males. They only want to be with straight males. So if you go out, if you're a straight guy, and I'm not advising that you do this, by the way, because it's just too much hassle. And I wouldn't do it, because why would you break hearts? But, I've certainly come across cases like this. And what will happen is the guy gets drunk and he goes and has sex with a woman, right? And the girl, his girlfriend, finds out, and she hits the roof, she screams and shouts, and possibly goes and gets a kitchen knife and brandishes that. And generally speaking, it's just hell on wheels for a while. Then she calms down and she forgives him. Why does she forgive him? And the answer is, he's just proved that he's a real man, right? He can't keep his penis out of pussy. Obviously, this is a real man. This is not a gay. Gays don't do that. Your ability to affirm the trans woman as a woman has just been boosted because she's gone, my God, look at that. First chance he gets, he's into a pussy. And so what she's likely to do is actually to ramp up her own, provision of sex and general niceness to the guy, partly because she wants to keep him, but also because she's like, this is a real guy. This is a real man. It's not a gay. Gays don't go off and have clandestine affairs with natal women. They just don't. So there you have the evidence. That means his mojo is nickel. It's solid. It still does the magic. So I absolutely don't recommend that you even think about trying that. I'm just trying to explain it. Trans women, sexually inverted trans women are delightful, delightful people. And please don't go around breaking their hearts because they're just so lovely. It's just not fair to do that. But really, I've certainly come across this many times, and that's what's actually happening. And it shows you the difference in relationship between the way that the dynamic of sex between a straight man and a natal woman, is not the same as it is between a straight man and a trans woman. I mean, a trans woman is still a woman, but in a way you could say that the desired object in this second relationship is the man's penis, whereas the desired object in the first one is the vagina, and the woman knows that. And having control over the vagina is what gives her control over the man. Within straight guy, trans woman relationships, the object of desire is definitely the penis. I mean, yeah, we do like to have sex with them using the equipment that they have. That goes without saying. But in terms of the philosophical dynamic, it's completely the inverse. So suddenly you've got the guy is the object of desire, instead of the woman being the object of desire. And so the dynamic is completely changed. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you're interested in having relationships with trans women, and when I say that, I mean, sorry, transsexuals, that is Blanchard HSTS, bear that in mind. Bear that in mind, that you have tremendous power in the relationship in a way that you never did when you were with a natal woman. You just didn't. And so you have to wield that power with some discretion. You know, you don't go around breaking people's hearts. It's not fair on them. The transsexuals are, unless they've been abused too much, are by and large extremely agreeable, charming, sweet, delightful women, trans women. And you know, you don't hurt them like that. You know, as I say, it's fine. You know, if you slip once or twice and you end up in bed with a natal woman, she's probably not going to make that much of a fuss. I mean, like I say, she might hit you with a frying pan, but she'll get over it. You know, she'll you know, pad your wounds later. She won't break up the relationship for it. If you were to have sex with another trans woman, then you probably kissed your relationship goodbye, because the girl is going to look at you and say, okay, what is it that he likes about me? Is it the fact that I'm a girl, or is it the fact that I have a cock? And if he wants me for a cock, that only means one thing: that man's gay. I can't be with a gay man because I'm a woman. All right? Do you see this? Do you get this? It's very, very important. It's central to the relationships of straight man and trans women. So there you are. That's enough for this afternoon. Cheers. Bye.